Well, hello, dear viewers. I have no idea why I started this video like that, but hi, everybody. It's time for another story. This is from Reddit user Zephyrpop. There's two P's, which is I don't know if I did that right. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's read a story. The most important part is the story, and this is the story of Jazzy. As a minor note, which I don't know if that got picked up or not, every now and then you might hear little noises from behind me. It's because Chi-Chi isn't here with me. And she's supposed to be sleeping, but she's not. So, she's flipping around on the sofa being silly. So, let's read this story. Hello, Moonhorse. Hello. And the Moonherd. I posted this story to the Discord server originally, but I'm posting it here now. I'm back with another story. Unfortunately, unlike the short story of Darth Dark, I remember that one, which was quick and rather amusing, this one is painful and still upsets me to this day. Oh, jeez, I'm sorry. The events are still fresh, but this ended about a month ago. Names have been censored because, well, duh. Though it'll probably be recognizable to those involved. Screw it. I need this catharsis and I need some advice. This has been bugging the hell out of me, and I really don't care if it upsets them. I just need it figured out. I'd also like to mention that I do not have all of the details. I know what I've seen and what I was told, so take everything with a grain of salt. Everyone in this story is either 17 or 18. Zephyra, that's me. Male, sort of have a proto-neckbeard look going to me. Long hair, ponytail, beard that I should probably trim. And I love games and nerdy shit. That's thankfully where the similarities end. Well, as we've always said, it's not your appearance that makes you a neckbeard, it's how you behave. Not the fedora, but the fedora. Critter, a friend of mine who introduced me to the group where this all occurred. Male, loves to fish, catch bugs, hence the name. Curly, another male friend, named as such because he has long curly hair. Most majestic mane I've seen to date. I feel slighted at that. He becomes important later. Emo, another friend, male, named that way because, well, take a guess. He's got the haircut, plays guitar, etc. Punk, another friend, female, see above. Kind of like the female version of emo. I don't know, it's the best comparison I got. Jewel, Punk's cousin, female who's visiting from a different state. The milady, so to speak, on this story. And Jazzy, former friend, center point of the tale. Messy hair, no beard, had acne all over his face. I want to say he was a little taller than me, somewhere between 5'8" and 5'11". Not really fat, but his weight did match his stature pretty well. There were others involved, but they didn't really have much of a presence in these events. I was invited into the group around August of this year. Either Critter invited me or I asked to come, but either way I met with Critter and Curly, Emo, Jazzy for the first time. I already knew and had talked to Punk before. Curly and Emo aren't super important to this story, so let's focus on Jazzy himself. I already gave a description of him, and only that because he's not a stereotypical beard. He did not really like video games or the like. His interests were mostly centered on jazz music, hence the name. He's also a big fan of history, something I'm a big fan of, to a degree, and spoke a different language. It was either French or Italian, but I don't really care to go through the old messages and find out. So about a month after, I had adapted into this group pretty well. I also got to meet Jewel again, who I hadn't seen since I moved away, so that was really nice. She'd apparently come back from her state on a different visit and stayed about a month or so. This is where the trouble began. See, Jazzy had taken a liking to Jewel. That much was clear. What was not clear, however, was how much Jewel liked him in return. According to Curly, they dated, quote-unquote, for a brief period. Though it was apparently difficult to call it dating. It was one-sided and very unemotional. For whatever reason, they broke up. Of course, we're young and hormonal, so a breakup is a decently big thing that everybody gets over in a few weeks. I speak little about this relationship because there's nothing else to say about it. However, the trouble began when Curly and Jewel began flirting. Anytime Curly and Jewel would flirt during hangouts, Jazzy would get miffed and storm off, hiding in his car or generally just away from them. Hell, it would happen even if they were just chatting with each other. Of course, it gets worse than this. According to Curly, once he and Jewel started dating, they are still together now, Jazzy began to stalk them through snap maps. I don't know what that is, but that terrifies me. I don't quite know how snap maps works. I don't quite know what snap maps is. But anytime he realized the two were together, he would be in our ranting channel talking about how lonely he was and so on. Coincidence the first time? Maybe. Or even the second or third times. But every single time? Another big issue we had with Jazzy was his humor. You ever made an offensive joke and it just not land? Imagine that, but instead of apologizing or changing the subject, you instead decide to insist on this and keep it going, doubling down on it. You know the phrase, beating a dead horse? How could you? Jazzy took a bat and turned that motherfucker into a smoothie. You can't see the look of horror I'm giving you right now. Sexist jokes were the primary example. Racist jokes weren't far behind. My friends and I enjoy a good offensive joke from time to time, mostly at each other's expense, but it was the frequency and the delivery that made this really concerning. They seemed less like jokes and more like repressed thoughts. The major issue is that it was explained to him at least twice, and I was there for those times. They're not funny, they're just mean. And he would apologize and stop, but next call or meetup, right back to the same shit. I think the most memorable one was one I was not even there for. Essentially, there's a Reddit article about how they put John Cena on Fruity Pebbles because he insert gay joke here, har har. Jazzy decided to take it in a very different direction and make jokes about Cocoa Pebbles being, well, I'm sure you can guess. A lovely quote that is still ingrained in my memory is, "They need to stop giving the children the black people flakes."
You're a fucking asshole.
Now, through all of this, he was guilt-tripping towards Jewel. Cries for attention and the like were constant towards her, and it really took a toll on her. Stress was visible when they hung out, and she started to avoid our Discord server like it had the plague. To be fair, kinda did. Up until this point, I had yet to connect all the dots. However, two incidents really let me realize what a problem this guy was. The first was the Smashing Pumpkins incident. Come again? It was actually the last day that Jewel was hanging out with us before going back to her home state. We headed to a farmer's market, and Critter and Jazzy both bought pumpkins, intent on carving them. However, Jazzy began making weird comments about it, calling it his girlfriend and saying, "Oh, at least she loves me," and "Pumpkin can't say no." Ew. It was weird, but we didn't say anything at the time. However, the worst part came later that night. We, being teenagers with pent-up emotions, decided to buy some pumpkins and then smash the shit out of them. Safe, right? Absolutely not. Satisfying? Well, yeah. See, I thought you were talking about the band. Got excited. I like that band. Anyway, at some point, Jazzy did his usual routine of skulking when Curly and Jewel chatted with each other. After a while, he came out with his pumpkin, took the axe we were using, and began to hack it to bits, while still calling it his girlfriend. What? I'm all for taking out physical frustration on inanimate objects, but pretending you're chopping up your imaginary girlfriend with an axe is a little much. The other incident involved a writing competition. We had a little competition where we took a few verbs and adjectives and began to write short stories about them within 20 minutes. Pretty fun little stories, except for Jazzy's. We played it twice. During those events, Jazzy began to get snippy with us. Eventually it came time for his turn, and what he had written was disturbing. He'd written a story about how a guy dated this one girl, then she left for a better-looking guy, and how him dating this girl gave a greater understanding of the female mind. Oh, that's a red flag if I ever saw one. At this point, the idea of Jazzy being a closeted incel was becoming a bit of an idea in my head. You and me both. A few weeks after that event, I and another friend were added to a call with Critter, Curly, Emo, and Punk. They laid out their evidence and said that they were banning him from the server, whether we liked it or not. We agreed wholeheartedly, and the next day he was gone. Everything was laid out for him, and to my surprise, he didn't deny it. He seemed to realize that he couldn't weasel his way out, and just accepted it. And that brings us to now. Everyone in the group, save for myself, has me blocked. He has tried to contact me twice, and both times I stated that I would be there to help him if he wants to know where he went wrong, but I will not be his friend again. I know I should just block him and cut the tumor already, but I can't bring myself to. Honestly, I think it's because I've seen worse on here and other channels, like Walter Fate. Stories read here about incels and pedophiles have made me realize that there are much worse people in the world. I think it stuck so hard because when you read those stories, you hear about all these bad people and what they've done. All the awful things and the like, and the absolute horrors that they are. I knew this person for 3 months. I got to know his hobbies, interests, just him in general. When he wasn't doing something bad like this, he was a pretty genuinely interesting guy. In my mind, there's Jazzy, who speaks a different language, likes jazz, and studies history, and then there's also Jazzy, who's possibly sexist, racist, and did some disturbing things, and emotionally manipulated a friend. In all honesty, this was just a long-winded backstory so I could ask for advice. What do you recommend I do? Do I stay around, give little pushes in the right direction? Do I just cut him off entirely? My brain tells me I should just block him and be done with it, but my heart says that he can change. He can be better. He just needs that push. I want to be clear with this last part that I do not support any of his actions. What he said, wrote, and did were all horrible things, and I accept my friend's decisions to never speak to him again. Hell, I would if I didn't feel this awful feeling telling me I'm abandoning someone who could be helped if I could just help. I don't really know anymore. If you read this, Moonhorse, I want to thank you and the rest of the Moonherd for being some of the best people I know. Aw. I don't exactly know you all well. Hell, most of you are many years my senior, but damn if you haven't brightened up every single day. You make stories a blast to listen to, and you're one of the few YouTubers I can think of whose post-story commentary that I actually want to listen to. That still surprises me that you guys do that. I hope that you'll continue to be great. Well, I'll do my best. I love this community, so thanks for bunch. Happy holidays, Christmas, New Year, whatever it is, time that you read this. With love, Zephyra. Oh boy, this is a tricky one. Okay. So first off, there's a couple of things that I should go ahead and address. One of them is the most important thing that I've been told when it comes to certain, I don't know, mental states when it comes to thinking of this kind of stuff, I guess is a good way to put it. I don't really know, but I'll try my best. I've had someone say to me that just because other people have gone through worse things does not invalidate your trauma. You have been through something worse. And yes, there are far more terrible people out there, but that doesn't make what you went through anything lesser or to be ignored. It is still something that needs to be addressed. Now, you guys are pretty young, so I'd say there's still a pretty high chance that they'll grow out of this horrible behavior, that Jazzy will become a better person, and that this can, you know, eventually move on. It just seems like they're really hung up on this one person. It seems like Jazzy's got this idea of what he wants to happen, you know, but, like, is not yet emotionally mature enough to realize that sometimes those things just don't work out. But as for how you're supposed to handle this situation, there's a couple of things that I kind of wish someone had told me whenever I put up with really toxic people in the past. One of them is you can help when it comes to someone who needs help, but if they're not wanting to change, that's just not going to happen. Don't make yourself suffer because someone else refuses to change in any way, shape, or form. The biggest part of changing your mentality, changing how things are, changing your entire personality involves taking responsibility for yourself. You have to be willing to actually want to change before any of that can mean anything. And I don't really know if Jazzy is at that point yet. And if that's the case, then they may not, actually change anytime soon. But the other part of this, which is also something I feel is kind of important, is I understand that this person is interesting and is your friend, but you are not solely responsible for their mental well-being. They are still a person, an individual, and they need to take responsibility for their actions. I can't tell you one way or another of what you're supposed to do because, honestly, I'm not you. The only person who can make those changes about oneself is that person, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, honestly, you kind of have to evaluate how this is making you feel. Do you really want to stay in this situation? If you do, that's fine. And if you don't, that's fine as well. But it is also your life that you have to consider. And, if someone's just wanting to wallow however they are, there's really not much you can do about that. I mean, who knows? There's a possibility at some point in the future that Jazzy will change everything and go back to being the happy-go-lucky person they were before. But that's up to them to make that decision. It's complicated, I know. It's very strange. Interpersonal relationships can get really weird. But it is a thing. It is a thing that you kind of have to make a decision on how you want to proceed with this. And I can't say heavily one way or another whether or not I would say that Jazzy is like full-on incel red pill nonsense, mainly because they are still quite young. You all are, so that's kind of a judgment I try to save till somebody gets a little bit older, mainly because there's a very high possibility you can grow out of that shit. And, I mean, yeah, 17, 18, that's not that old. So, there is a good possibility that that is a thing. That very well be, just one of them things that happens. I'm not giving the best of advice with this, but I do try my best with a lot of this. And really, it's hard to say because I don't 100% know everybody involved, so I can't say if one decision is a great decision or not. But I do want you to consider your feelings towards this at the same time. If you're giving advice or these little pushes, as you called it, and even though Jazzy seems to accept it, is not acting on it in any way, then the other question is, when you do have these moments, is this a thing where they talk about, what's going on with them at great length, and then you give advice and then nothing happens? Because if that's the case, they're not really taking your advice, they're just venting. And you kind of need to make a decision about whether or not you want to stick around to listen to that. If, again, if that's your thing, if you're okay with that, that's fine. It's totally up to you. But I know some people aren't. I know some people are if you give advice, you expect at least to be partially listened to. So I can understand both sides of that. The most important thing, however, is that you're all safe and take care of yourself. And that goes for all of you. You guys, it's a scary time right now. Things have gotten really fucking crazy out there, but please be safe and know that you are loved and cared for no matter what. That's kind of the end of this video, so thanks for watching, everybody. The YouTube drill thing. I won't go on about it here, but I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.